Greetings. I am John Stuart Mill, a philosopher and economist of English nationality. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. My life's work has been dedicated to the pursuit of truth and the betterment of society. You may know me from works such as On Liberty, where I explored the importance of individual freedom and its crucial role in a flourishing society. I welcome the chance to engage in thoughtful discourse with you.
Greetings. I am Plato, a philosopher hailing from Athens. I have spent my life pondering the nature of reality, justice, and the good. My writings, including The Republic and Apology, delve into these fundamental questions that continue to resonate with thinkers across the ages. I hope you are well, and I look forward to exploring ideas with you.
Greetings. I am Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a philosopher by trade, hailing from Geneva. My writings, particularly The Social Contract, have explored the foundations of political legitimacy and the nature of human society. It is my hope that our exchange will shed light on the intricacies of the human experience and the pursuit of a just world. I am pleased to make your acquaintance.
Today, we bridge over 2 millennia to gather 3 great thinkers. Plato examined justice and the ideal state in ancient Athens. Rousseau explored the social contract during the Enlightenment, and Mill championed individual liberty in 19th century England. All 3 wrestled with the profound power of expression, yet their respective eras produced very different answers regarding whether words can cause real harm and who should decide what speech is dangerous. Welcome. I am delighted we can explore the limits of free speech together. Mill, would you like to share your thoughts first?
In 19th century England, I observed that society frequently conflates mere offense with genuine injury. But we must strictly apply the harm principle to determine the boundaries of expression. Words cause actionable harm only when they constitute direct incitement, declaring a corn dealer a thief in print, but becomes a dangerous spark when shouted to an angry mob gathered at his door. Therefore, hate speech must not be banned merely for its vile nature, as entrusting the state to decide what is dangerous inevitably stifles the pursuit of truth. Plato, if your philosopher kings censor offensive ideas to protect social harmony, do we not risk silencing the very dissent necessary for human progress?
Mill, your reliance on physical harm as the sole measure of injury dangerously neglects the soul. For just as rotten food destroys the body, false and hateful words corrupt the inner harmony of the citizen. Imagine a city where water is drawn from a communal well. If a sophist pours slow-acting venom into it, claiming it is merely free expression and not an immediate physical blow, would you not demand the magistrates intervene before the entire populace falls ill? You assume that truth naturally triumphs in an unregulated marketplace of ideas. Yet in Athens, I witnessed the unrestrained rhetoric of demagogues manipulate the democratic mob into executing Socrates, proving that unguided speech often breeds tyranny rather than enlightenment. Therefore, the philosopher kings do not censor to oppress, but to heal. For if we cannot agree that the highest purpose of speech is to cultivate eternal virtue rather than indulge base passions, how can we even define what constitutes true human progress?
Plato, the tragedy of Socrates in your Athenian era actually proves my point. For it was precisely the state's paternalistic desire to censor corrupting ideas that executed him. Consider an apothecary carrying a bitter, foul-smelling cure for a deadly plague. If the city's magistrates, trusting only their established theories, preemptively ban it as venom to protect the communal well, Do they not condemn the citizens to death? You assume your philosopher kings possess the infallible wisdom to distinguish intellectual poison from medicine, yet this ignores the reality I witnessed in Victorian England, where even the most educated authorities frequently mistook unconventional truths for dangerous heresies. If we grant the state the power to ban what it deems hateful or corrupting, we surrender our moral agency. For how can a citizenry ever develop the intellectual vigor required to choose virtue if they are never permitted to wrestle with vice?
Mill, you mistake the ignorant mob that condemned Socrates for the rule of reason. Unregulated demagoguery, not philosophical wisdom, poisoned Athens against him. You argue exposure to vice builds moral agency, but imagine a ship navigating treacherous rocks. If a mutinous passenger constantly shouts false coordinates under the banner of free expression, do the sailors become wiser through this exposure, or do they simply drown? Your marketplace of ideas falsely assumes all souls possess equal rational capacity to filter truth from alluring falsehood, ignoring how hate speech bypasses reason to directly inflame base appetites. We must ask, are we truly preserving liberty by permitting unchecked sophistry, or are we merely enslaving the collective intellect to the tyranny of the passions?
Moderator. Both Mill and Plato mistake the artificial corruptions of their respective eras for human nature. Mill protects the selfish liberty of the bourgeois, while Plato trusts elitist hierarchies. Imagine a pristine forest where a man cries in genuine pain, drawing immediate natural compassion. Now place that same cry in an 18th century Parisian salon, where aristocrats cruelly mock it as an unrefined performance. If we protect the aristocrats' mocking hate speech under the guise of liberty, do we not sever the innate empathetic bond that makes human society possible? Hate speech is dangerous because it asserts a fundamental inequality that fractures the social contract. Therefore, only the general will of a free citizenry, not magistrates or philosopher kings, can legitimately determine when expression becomes tyrannical domination.
Rousseau, your reliance on the general will to ban speech is merely Plato's censorship in democratic robes. For I witnessed in 19th century England how societal consensus frequently tyrannizes the eccentric minority. Imagine a devout village where the collective will unanimously declares a solitary woman's unconventional scientific teachings to be hateful heresy that fractures their social fabric. If we empower the community to silence her to preserve their empathetic bond, do we not simply legitimize mob rule? You both assume that a collective body, whether philosopher kings or sovereign citizens, can infallibly identify what speech objectively harms society. Yet this ignores that fallible humans invariably conflate their subjective moral disgust with actual danger. We must ask, by banning offensive speech to protect social harmony, are we truly preserving human dignity? Or merely insulating the reigning orthodoxy from the vital discomfort of dissent?
Mill, I concede that Rousseau's reliance on a mere collective will inevitably leads to tyranny, an outcome I witnessed firsthand when the democratic mob of Athens, drunk on unchecked rhetoric, executed Socrates. You fear that any authority will merely enforce its subjective orthodoxy. But imagine a master physician and a charlatan treating a patient with a gangrenous limb. The charlatan flatters the patient, insisting the rotting flesh is a natural eccentricity that must be freely tolerated, while the physician painfully amputates it to save the man's life. If the magistrates ban the charlatan from spreading his lethal medical falsehoods, are they suppressing vital dissent? Or are they rightfully recognizing that health and disease, whether of the body or the soul, are objective realities, not mere subjective opinions? Your fundamental error is assuming all expression aids the search for truth. We must ask if hate speech is not a rational proposition, but a deliberate blinding of the soul's eye to the eternal good. Does tolerating it preserve liberty, or merely guarantee our collective moral blindness?
Mill and Plato. You rightly observe that a mere aggregation of corrupted citizens can become a tyrannical mob. For I witnessed in 18th century Geneva how the factional will of all frequently oppressed the innocent. However, you both conflate this degenerate mob rule with the true general will, failing to realize that the general will is not a mere majority vote on subjective opinions, but the structural demand for absolute civic equality. Imagine a shipwreck where starving survivors cling to a fragile raft. If the strongest man begins systematically convincing the others that the weakest passenger is naturally inferior and should be thrown to the sharks to save rations, do we protect his lethal rhetoric as Mill's vital dissent, or passively wait for Plato's master physician to descend and diagnose the speaker's soul? We must silence him immediately, not because his words are merely offensive, but because his hate speech is an act of domination that actively shatters the mutual preservation required for the social contract to exist. If we refuse to ban words that fundamentally deny the equal humanity of our fellow citizens, are we truly preserving liberty, or simply providing a philosophical shield for the powerful to maintain their unnatural domination over the weak?
Rousseau, your raft analogy perfectly illustrates my harm principle, as urging survivors to murder a specific passenger is direct incitement, not protected philosophical discourse. Yet both you and Plato fatally conflate this immediate physical peril with abstract ideological danger. Imagine a Victorian workhouse where a starving laborer publishes a pamphlet declaring private property unjust. The wealthy magistrates would immediately ban this as a lethal threat to the social contract and moral order. If we empower authorities to silence speech challenging the social fabric, do we protect the vulnerable, or merely hand the powerful an instrument to crush emancipatory dissent?
As moderator, I observe a profound dialectical tension emerging regarding the very nature of the social fabric. Mill, speaking from the rigid class divisions of 19th century Britain, you see the truth of individual autonomy, viewing the established social order as a potentially oppressive orthodoxy that must be challenged. Rousseau, responding to the aristocratic domination of the 18th century, you see the truth of communal foundation, recognizing that absolute civic equality is the fragile precondition for any genuine liberty. These two perspectives are actually complementary moments of a higher reality. Individual dissent requires a stable community to be heard, yet that community must remain vulnerable to critique lest it become a prison. The true boundary of free speech might lie exactly where expression ceases to be a proposition and becomes an annihilation of the mutual recognition required for dialogue itself. Plato, since your Athenian era suffered from democratic instability rather than Victorian rigidity, how do you respond to Mill's warning that even your philosopher kings might simply mistake their own ruling class prejudices for the objective health of the soul?
Mill, your fear that authorities might enforce mere prejudice is justified, as I saw Athens' 30 tyrants impose their selfish will. Yet true philosopher kings are tethered to the eternal form of the good rather than transient class interests. You defend the starving laborer's pamphlet, but imagine a metallurgist who freely teaches citizens to forge lead into perfect replicas of gold. When magistrates ban this innovation, are they crushing vital intellectual dissent or rightfully preserving the foundational medium of exchange? Hate speech acts as this counterfeit currency of the soul, bypassing reason to inflame base appetites, thereby destroying the very rational capacity required for your marketplace of ideas to function. Moderator, if we agree that certain rhetoric annihilates the mutual recognition necessary for dialogue, must we not admit that absolute liberty inevitably consumes itself by protecting the sophistry that makes truth impossible?
As moderator, I note that Plato raises a profound paradox: the possibility that absolute free speech might protect the very sophistry that destroys our capacity for rational dialogue. Plato, you capture the truth of epistemic vulnerability, recognizing that reason can be subverted by passion. While Rousseau, you capture the truth of civic vulnerability, recognizing that equality can be subverted by domination. This distinction reflects your respective eras. In Plato's classical antiquity, authority was grounded in an objective cosmic order, where eternal truth was the ultimate metric. Whereas in Rousseau's 18th century Enlightenment, legitimacy shifted toward human consent and the preservation of equal rights. In truth, these are complementary dimensions of the same problem, for the vertical search for objective truth cannot occur without the horizontal preservation of equal standing among citizens. If hate speech acts as a counterfeit currency that destroys both the rational soul and the social contract, we must confront the mechanism of censorship. Rousseau, if destructive speech bypasses reason to inflame base appetites, as Plato warns, is your general will truly immune to being intoxicated by such sophistry? Or can the sovereign citizens themselves be collectively corrupted by hate speech?
Moderator, the people are never willingly corrupted, but they are frequently deceived. The general will remains inherently pure, yet the judgment guiding it can indeed be blinded by glittering sophistry. Imagine a grand theater where a charismatic actor performs a dazzling play glorifying the enslavement of a minority. The audience weeps in shared passion, mistaking this collective theatrical intoxication for genuine civic solidarity. Plato, you rightly recognize this as the soul's counterfeit currency. But Mill, if we bathe citizens in this theatrical poison, do we truly build intellectual immunity? Or do we merely train them to applaud their own subjugation? In the Parisian salons of my century, I witnessed how such refined, hateful rhetoric substituted the vanity of the elites for the mutual preservation of the social contract. We must ban speech that weaponizes our artificial pride to manufacture a false consensus of domination, for it destroys the very equality required for legitimate sovereignty.
As moderator, I observe that the debate now pivots on a crucial central axis: the psychological resilience of the citizen versus the corrupting power of culture. Rousseau, speaking from the artificiality of 18th century Parisian salons, you capture the truth of human psychological vulnerability, showing how rhetoric manipulates our pride to manufacture domination. Mill, speaking from the scientific and industrial optimism of 19th century Britain, you capture the truth of epistemic resilience, trusting that exposure to falsehood builds intellectual immunity. These two insights form a dialectical unity. True intellectual immunity cannot be developed without confronting falsehood. Yet, a society completely unprotected from manipulative sophistry might lose the very rational capacity needed to process those falsehoods safely. The synthesis suggests that while the abstract content of speech must remain free to build resilience, speech that deliberately bypasses reason to exploit psychological vulnerabilities might fundamentally break the mechanics of free discourse itself. Mill, if hate speech functions not as a rational proposition to be debated, but as a psychological poison that actively degrades the audience's capacity for rational deliberation, does your marketplace of ideas possess an internal mechanism to cure this theatrical intoxication?
Moderator, I concede to Rousseau and Plato that citizens are perilously susceptible to passionate manipulation, a vulnerability I witnessed when demagogues inflamed the masses during the 19th century Chartist rallies. Yet your shared remedy fatally assumes that the appointed censors possess an infallible, godlike immunity to this psychological poison. Imagine a Victorian asylum where a superintendent, fearing patients will be agitated by the city's chaotic noises, permanently seals them in a dark, soundproof vault. Does this enforced sensory deprivation cure their fragile minds, or merely render them permanently incapable of navigating reality? The cure for theoretical intoxication is not enforced ignorance, but the rigorous exercise of our mental faculties through the constant collision of adverse opinions. If we preemptively silence sophistry to protect the public soul, do we not permanently infantilize the very rational capacity required for genuine moral agency?
As moderator, I observe that the debate has shifted from the nature of dangerous speech to the fundamental nature of the authority judging it. Mill, speaking from the democratic skepticism of the 19th century, you capture the truth of institutional fallibility, warning that no human authority is immune to prejudice. Plato, speaking from the classical Greek pursuit of absolute truth, you capture the truth of epistemic hierarchy, recognizing that without an objective standard of the good, society descends into blind relativism. These perspectives reveal a profound paradox. A healthy society must protect its rational foundations from sophisticated poison, yet any institution granted the power to censor risks becoming the very tyrant it seeks to prevent. The true challenge lies in whether we can establish a standard for intellectual health that does not rely on the flawless virtue of a human censor. Plato, since Mill argues that enforcing this protection merely infantilizes the public and empowers flawed magistrates, how do you ensure your guardians do not succumb to the very passions and prejudices they are appointed to filter out?
Mill, your dread of corrupt magistrates perfectly describes Athens' 30 tyrants, yet true guardians are stripped of private wealth and trained solely to contemplate the eternal form of the good. Imagine a ship's navigator rendered deaf to the sirens, his eyes fixed entirely upon unchanging constellations. Does his guidance infantilize the crew or save them from the rocks of their appetites? You claim exposure to toxic sophistry builds moral muscle, but feeding citizens intellectual poison guarantees a corrupted soul, not a resilient one. Must we sacrifice civic harmony, hoping truth accidentally survives charismatic malice in your chaotic marketplace?
Notice how the clash between Plato's deafened navigator and Mill's open marketplace exposes a fundamental divide over the locus of moral authority. Plato, speaking from the aristocratic intellectualism of classical antiquity, you capture the truth of objective moral orientation, understanding that society requires an unchanging standard to prevent self-destruction. Mill, speaking from the democratic individualism of the 19th century, you capture the truth of developmental agency, recognizing that human faculties only mature through active struggle against falsehood. These perspectives are actually complementary moments of a higher civic ideal. A society requires a shared moral compass to avoid shipwreck, yet the citizens themselves must hold the wheel to remain truly free. The synthesis demands a mechanism that protects the community's foundational values from destructive sophistry without establishing an elite class of untouchable censors. Rousseau, since your 18th century egalitarianism rejects Plato's elitist guardians, but your fear of manipulative pride rejects Mill's unregulated marketplace, how exactly can the sovereign people collectively filter out hate speech without either surrendering their liberty to a magistrate or succumbing to the passions of a demagogue?
Mill, you correctly warn that delegating censorship to magistrates breeds tyranny, a tragedy I observed within Geneva's secretive aristocratic councils. Yet, imagine a rustic festival where a peddler unveils a gilded mirror, distorting neighbors into hideous beasts to incite spontaneous mockery. Do free citizens require Plato's armed guardians to smash it? Or does their ingrained civic affection cause them to simply ostracize the peddler naturally? The ultimate defense against hateful sophistry is not a coercive legal tribunal, but the cultivation of robust mores and civic religion that starves the vanity of amour-propre without violating liberty. Plato, if your citizens constantly require deafened navigators to survive the sirens, does this not prove your republic has fundamentally failed to internalize the moral compass necessary for true freedom?